So, friends, today we're going to continue on from the theme of the last episode. Now, if you remember the last episode, we talked a lot about the life Tetris analogy. I gave an example about how to actually fit it in the context of your client's life. And one of the things that Len brought up in that episode was basically how clients, especially new clients, when they're starting, get really, really addicted to the idea of change and start to do way too much too fast. And great minds think alike. That was the section a little bit farther on in the book. And so we didn't quite have time to get to that. So I want to talk about that. And I also want to talk about how to reel them back and how to figure out when you've reeled them back enough. And there's a process that I'm going to walk through, of course, with an example. It actually continues the same example that we gave in the last episode. So if you listen to that, there was an example where I had a client, I think I called her Tiffany. Her name wasn't Tiffany, but I think I called her Tiffany. And she was drinking a mocha frappe latte that was like 800 calories, 6 days a week, Monday to Friday and Sundays. And it was the whole process of working backwards with her to, work that back to help her lose weight. And what I didn't talk about in that process was the actual scale that I used to figure out when it was something that she knew she could do it. And so we're going to talk about that a little bit. And then we're going to talk about this really famous Stanford marshmallow experiment from 1972, which was, it's generally referred to as the marshmallow test. And we're going to talk about what to do if you are the type of person who would have eaten the shit out of that second marshmallow. So for those who don't know, the Stanford marshmallow experiment, it was the study on delayed gratification. It's 1972. And kids were given a marshmallow and told to wait. And if they didn't eat it by the time the experimenter got back, generally about 15 minutes, then they were told that they'd get a second marshmallow. So, hey, if you wait staring at this delicious food sent down from the heavens and you don't eat it, then we'll give you a second one, you get more, right? But if you eat it, that's fine, but you don't get anything else. And then they, of course, followed the kids for a few decades. And it was found that the ones who delayed gratification, the ones who didn't immediately shove that marshmallow in their face, were more successful later in life. And in full context, the predictive power of this experiment has been seriously questioned. But the idea of delaying gratification for more success is pretty well accepted. The problem is that I would have eaten the shit out of that second marshmallow. And judging by Amber's face when I said it, I would have eaten the shit out of that first marshmallow. I wouldn't have gotten that second marshmallow. So much so, and I know this about myself, that I quite literally own the domain secondmarshmallow.com. I kid you not.
Can you have to one episode where you just list all the domains that you bought in your lifetime?
So many domains. So many domains.
You give new credence to the term master of your domain. Sweet Jesus.
But I've always questioned that because, there was particularly a period in my life when I was, a number of years ago, I was reading a lot of psychology. I was going through all of these studies, and this study is really famous. And if you read any behavioral psych, you'll come across this probably in every single book that you read. Mm-hmm. But I couldn't stop thinking. I'm like, okay, well, that's good. But I would have eaten that marshmallow. So what? So am I screwed? Well, it doesn't seem like it. I've clearly been able to do some things that require delaying gratification. Write the books, get in shape, build the business. All of these things are basically the same process, which we'll talk about. And then I realized that I had kind of invented immediate gratification systems to reward myself all of the small steps along the way. Spoiler alert, that's what we're talking about. So anyway, that's what we're going to go over in today's episode, and I'm excited to do it. But first, I kind of wanted to talk about, so I'm leaving Mexico tomorrow, and I've been here for 4 months, and this is my 10th winter in a row away. So I've lived abroad 3 to 5 months out of the year, every year for the last 10 years. And we're going home tomorrow. And so whenever this happens, Allison and I often get reflective. We had a date night on Monday, and we talked a little bit about, what are you grateful for in this trip? And is there any growth that you feel like you've experienced? Allison got all tattooed up yesterday, which was fun. She got that was the episode when I saw the tattoo for the first time. But what I thought would be would be good to kind of talk about a little bit, because I feel like you always hear about people who live and work abroad, but you don't really know much about it other than like, oh, look, there's that picture on that beach, or they must be living the life. And like, it's maybe it is for sort of unencumbered 20-some-year-olds, or even 30 or 40 or 50-year-olds with no families and no real life requirements. For us, it's life. We have routines here. I work a full work day. My work day is generally shifted. I work 5:30 to 7:30, and then I have a couple hours in the mid-morning where I work out and be with the family, and then I'll work in the afternoon. But I work like 4 hours of a work day, and we have a routine and a schedule. The main difference, though, is this. I have nothing against the hustle and the constant feel of you always have to be working harder and faster and getting more in Toronto. I mean, Toronto is a hustle city. You got to be making a lot of money. Everybody's trying to get ahead. And I have no problem with that. I actually quite like that energy. I'm not escaping that energy, but I don't like that energy all the time. And so one of the nicest things about being able to kind of separate myself in the space, and I don't know whether you need to necessarily separate in the space, but I thought it would be good to at least bring up and discuss, and we can talk about it as much or as little as you two want, is just the difference in feeling of living in the two different environments and how they benefit one another. Like, I'm excited now to get back into that, like, take no shit, kick ass culture of Toronto. But after 5 or 6 months there, I'm going to be like, get me the hell out. I need to meet some more Mexican fishermen who work at a taco joint and play spike ball at night and are just kind of good. Like, they don't care if they put money away into savings or play the stock market better than somebody else. They're good because they have everything that they want right now, and they know that they're going to be able to do this. And I find it very beneficial, empowering to have exposure to both, and return back to both. I don't know. Is that interesting? Is that something that you guys think you want to talk about at all?
As someone who doesn't like to leave the house, that totally confuses me.
Tell me about that, though. Like, what do you mean by that?
It just sounds like so much work. Like, I'm the type of person, I don't like to go on vacation because it's work. Like, it's not relaxing. I need a vacation from my vacation every time. It's not, I don't know, like, that just is, even trying to plan all of that makes my brain hurt. So I like watching other people do it. I think it's really cool. I just couldn't do it.
That's your jam?
No, especially like by myself. Like, I would never travel by myself. When we went to Mexico for our like retreat or whatever, I was like Alex's shadow, because like, please do not leave me alone anywhere. Like, I'm scared, and please don't leave me anywhere. I'm scared. So nope.
That's
I don't even
awesome.
like driving in new cities. I can't even drive in new cities. It freaks me out too much. So
Right.
What?
That's interesting because I'm an introvert, but I like driving in it. When the first time I ever went to Toronto, I rented a car there, so I could drive around and I like finding my bearings in new places. It's part challenge, part adventure. And when I'm properly set up for interacting with, I'm good at it. When it and up for it, and when I've got the energy for it, man, I love it. Speaking to people on the streets of Toronto, wearing my Fitness Jones training hoodie, interacting with people at the summit with John, like, but also when I'm not up for it, I disappear. I just,
I mean, but that's the difference, right? Of being like a vacation and living in a place is very, very different.
Right. It's absolutely
I mean,
different.
I agree. It's stressful as all hell for me to go on vacation. Like, I don't enjoy short week vacations or something. I'd rather take a local like weekend away, somewhere where we can drive to pretty close to us, than go fly somewhere for a week or 4 nights or 5 nights or whatever it is. But coming to a place where we're living. Anyway, okay. Well, I mean, I thought that I'd bring that up. I've heard from a number of people who listen to the podcast that they really feel like, I don't know what the term that I want to use is, because the one term is such a jerky term now, is lifestyle engineering. But I'll use it because I feel like it has some understanding. But God, I hate that term. But it's kind of one of those things where I hear from a lot of people that a lot of the interjections of stuff that I bring up every so often about, hey, like, what do I really benefit from doing this type of thing? Because it would obviously be easier to not do this thing.
Right.
But what kind of growth does it lead to? Like, we just had our last workout today at a place called Quilombo MMA Fitness. And I've been doing CrossFit in Mexico for the last 4 months. And I've never done, and I mean, we've been hitting it 4 or 5 times a week at least. And I've never done CrossFit to any real extent before. In Hawaii, I did it for maybe a month. And would I continue doing it? I mean, maybe I'll look for a gym at home. I'm enjoying it. But more than anything else, it's now I know what that's like through experience.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that there's so much benefit of that, whether it's something that you decide is going to be additive or not at the end of the day. You're only as interesting as the combination of all of your experiences. And the more experiences that you can gain, the more overlap, the more interesting, the more potentially helpful, useful, the more empathetic you can be towards other people and other means of doing things. Like, a lot of people shit on CrossFit. It's like, well, have you actually if you're shitting on CrossFit, have you actively trained CrossFit for 4 months straight, 4 or 5 times a week? And in some cases, yes, right? But unless you have, you really, I don't think, have a right to shit on it. It doesn't mean that you might just decide that it's not right for you, and that's fine. Would I make it the center of all of my programming if I were to open up a gym and train clients again? No, but I would absolutely take concepts of it and incorporate it into what I do. I would absolutely incorporate some of the sets and the reps. The idea that you really only need 15, 20, maybe 25 minutes of real intense work. You don't need an hour. And so the rest of the time is actually really well used or better utilized for a good warm-up, and then some sort of movement prep or movement education. And then you hit it really hard for 20, 25 minutes. And that might be some combination of time sets, AMRAPs. I actually like a lot 40 seconds on, 20 seconds off. Mm-hmm. Like that kind of rep loading scheme for programming, right? And then, of course, the group element is just fantastic, which you don't often get. So when you experience a lot of these things, you start to be able to bring them into whatever you're doing. And I think there's so much benefit in that. You also start to see ways that other people live their life. And even if you wouldn't take their entire life, well, you can be like, well, they got some stuff figured out. Like, I don't necessarily want to be living in Mexico all the time, but there's a lot of people here who have come from a lot of the markers of success that we're brought up to want, mm-hmm. or assume that we want. The Hector, who worked in high finance in Chicago for 30 years, his kids grew up, and he's like, yo, I'm just going to go and open up a little retreat center, mm-hmm. and box for 3 hours a day and live in this small town in Mexico. You know, would I do that? No, but like, speaking to Hector helps me understand a lot about life, mm-hmm. and I would never have met him any other way. So all of this to say, I think there's a lot of benefits of taking yourself to places to just see other ways of doing life and being able to pull out perhaps pieces of it that are better for you, or just realize that it's not right for you, or start to feel a different type of energy, so that when you return to your world, you're like craving your world's energy again. Like I am now, like, yeah. I'm craving that hustle of Toronto, of the city again. And I'm looking forward to it. Anyway, topic for today. stopping your client from changing too much, too fast. So let's give him a name. Margaret. Margaret just started coaching. She's dreaming about the future. Feels good. Her dopaminergic reward systems, baby, they're on fire.
Go, Maggie. You're a fire girl.
Because dreaming is physiologically addictive. Dreaming is physiologically addictive. Doing the hard work to make that dream a reality, on the other hand, kind of sucks. The entire self-help genre shouldn't exist. And yet, it is one of the most profitable genres of selling books and items and coaching in the world. There is nothing new in the past 100 years that's meaningful in the self-help field. Nothing. I don't give a shit what guru you listen to. There's nothing new. Logically, you should be able to buy a self-help book, do the thing, get helped, and never buy one again. But that's not how it works. If you've ever been to like some self-development person's house, nobody ever just has one book. It's like nobody ever just has one fitness book. I mean, it's kind of the same type of thing. It's like, get a fitness book, do the fitness thing, put it down, and keep doing the fitness thing. You don't need more and more fitness books. But people who buy one self-help book buy many self-help books. And the reason for this is it's addictive to dream about a better future. Making a better future a reality, however, takes hard work. We buy the book, we get all gung-ho, we begin to do the work, we fall off because the initial excitement is worn off, and then we buy another book, get another hit of dopamine, and the cycle repeats itself over and over and over and over again. So as you're making a plan for your client, it's got to be realistic for your client, and you often have to reel them back because they're going to be in that phase very early on when you're making the plan where they're all gung-ho. Well, that shit's going to wear off. And so to do this, I mean a super simple 1 to 10 scale. So we talked about Tiffany in the last episode. Tiffany drank 6 800+ calorie bomb mocha frappe lattes, frappe, whole bunch of words made up from Starbucks every single week. And if you recall, if you've listened to that last episode, she circled it on her log as something that she wanted to change. And her plan was to stop cold turkey. Her plan was like, holy crap, I didn't realize how many calories was in it. I didn't realize that 3,500 calories is a pound of fat. Okay, well, I'm just going to stop drinking these. And I pushed back. And so I want to talk to you now and tell you how I push back and how the conversation went. So this is all paraphrased, of course, but this is the process that I went through. So I said, so this is starting with her saying, okay, I'm just going to stop, cold turkey. I'm not going to have these anymore. Cool. I'm curious. On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 meaning that you're going to adhere 100% and never get these drinks again, where do you think you're at? And then she just went, she's like, oof, I don't know, probably like a 4, she replied. So I said, what makes you say that? She said, I really love my Sunday meetups with my girlfriends. And if they're all getting their drink, I don't want to be the only one not getting my drink, she said. So immediately now, Tiffany didn't want to be excluded from her social group, right? She looks forward to these hangouts with her girlfriends on Sundays. All of her girlfriends gets these drinks. She doesn't want to be the one not getting that drink. Like, that's a pretty sticky habit that's going to be really hard to, I don't know, unstick. Does that sound weird? Moist?
Yeah,
Whatever.
probably wasn't the best choice of words.
I don't
but
like it.
Yeah.
It's kind of a very, very moist, sticky habit. I was talking to, I told you guys in the last episode, I was talking to Anthony here in Mexico. And one thing I said to him, I was like, the really cool thing about podcasts is like, you listen to enough podcasts with somebody, you know who they are, because somebody could fake it with like short form content. Somebody could fake it with blog posts. Somebody could fake it with like perfect YouTube videos. You listen to somebody for like 20 or 30 or 40 hours on a podcast, like the walls are down.
Yes.
And I was just like, you tell me a penis joke, I'm gonna laugh. Like, that's just who I am. Like, you can't not, you can't fake it at a certain point. That's why I love this. So anyway, so here's what I said to her. So after she said, I don't want to be the only one not getting my drink, I said, that's totally reasonable. Okay. So on that same scale of 1 to 10, but this time you'll still enjoy the drink on Sundays, where do you think you're at? And she said, like a 7 or 8. She said, it's not so much the drink during the week, but the routine. Getting out the door in the mornings are chaotic with my family. If I don't get a coffee on the way to work, I'd have to make it at home, and it's crazy enough as it is. So this highlights something that Amber said in the last episode. What were the words you used, Amber? It was really good. I know you sent me the recording to go back, and actually I was going to edit a section of the book with what you said, but I haven't gotten to it yet. So what was it you said about the habits and changing one thing changes another thing? You said
it has a domino effect. When you make a change, it's not just that change. There's a million other micro changes that have to occur in order for that big change to happen.
Yeah. Which this really highlights. And so I'm going to edit the book a little bit with your words, because I didn't realize that at the time when I was retelling the story, just how important that is to really bring out and make sure that coaches are aware of. And also anybody who's like trying to make a change is aware of, like, if you want to change something, you have to also understand and appreciate second order consequences. What is going to have to change in order for you to make this change? And how big are those changes? In this case, we have the first one. Okay, well, Tiffany loves hanging out with her girlfriends on Sundays. Her girlfriends are all getting this drink. She doesn't want to be the only one not getting the drink. Well, that's a pretty big second order consequence that's going to make it difficult for her to do the thing and change the thing. Well, the second one is she's busy. She's got a family. I know what it's like getting a family out the door in the morning. Ask our CrossFit instructor how many times we were on time. Like, it's not easy. And now you're adding something else into the morning. You finally got it figured out. You finally got your routine going on. People who don't have kids don't understand. It's like if you got to get a kid out the door to school, I don't care who you are. There are going to be days where you're like, we're nailing this. And then there's going to be 98% of the other days where you're like, we are just trying to make sure our pants are on. And if they're backwards, it's still a win, dude. Calvin shows up with his pants on backwards 3 out of 5 days. And that's just life at this point. So adding something in the morning for Tiffany that's different from what she's doing, that's a big change. Much bigger than making the coffee at home. So what I said to her is, so she said, if I don't get a coffee on the way to work, I'd have to make it at home, and it's crazy enough as it is. So I said to her, awesome, okay. So how about this then? What if you enjoyed your drink on Sundays with your girlfriends and kept your routine of going to Starbucks during the week on the way to work, but got a simple black coffee? What do you think you'd be at on that same scale of 1 to 10? And then she said, 10 for sure. I could do that. I was like, great plan. And then we high-fived, and that's what happened. And that's just an example of going back to this life Tetris analogy. In understanding the consequences of the changes that she wants to make, you don't have to eliminate Starbucks, although you should, because I just don't want Starbucks to get more money. But you should go to McDonald's, because I own McDonald's stock. So go to McDonald's and buy your coffee from McDonald's instead. That was a great investment, by the way.
Don't hate, John.
You know what happened? It's funny as like a fitness person to own McDonald's stock, but I kept going in there because, we go in there with Calvin sometimes, and we go in there at all hours of the day. And I was like, this place is always full, and it's always full with different types of people at different times of the day. Yeah. You get, of course, the families after school, you get the people at night, but then you get the students, then you get like the old people love McDonald's cafe, like love it. And so I was like, this company ain't going anymore, man. They are nailing it. You'd be in a strip mall plaza and nobody else has anybody in there. And the McDonald's is full 24/7. I was like, I'm buying some of this shit, fucking stock, passive income. I'm not making any ebooks. I'm just going to buy some of this stock. Anyway.
Haven for the elderly.
So you don't need to eliminate Starbucks in order to eliminate the sugar bomb calorie drink. And you can maintain the habit and the routine while eliminating that drink. And so this is an example of just like you moving the pieces around, right? You're just rejiggering that, not really. I mean, I guess we're eliminating the calorie drinks, but she's still having the coffee. And so all of this to say, it's human nature to want to make big changes quickly. But the simple scale of 10, I find, is really useful. It opens up a dialogue of how realistic a self-imposed plan is for the client. And it also allows the client to self-assess in a realistic way, as opposed to the coach saying, no, you can't do that. That's ridiculous. You're not man enough to do that, Tiffany, right? As opposed to saying, okay, well, like, I'm curious, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being you nail this every time, you know, where would you be at? And if the client isn't at a 9 or 10, they're not going to stick to it, because it has to work within their existing habits. Their life Tetris pieces already exist. Your job isn't to change them or to make new pieces. It's to fit what they need to do around what they're already doing. The secret to change is actually pretty simple. It's to make it easy before you make it hard.
Oh, that's a good line. Put that on a shirt. That. That's a good one.
I'm moving that to the end because that's a nice like punch at the end.
Yeah. Did you have sleep before you wrote that? Because that's pretty good.
I took like a 2-hour nap today, man.
Okay.
I've been feeling rough.
That did it, man.
Yeah, I've been feeling rough. I'm waking up super early to write, and I'm just not sleeping that well at night. Like the kids are now, but for some reason I'm not. I don't know why. And so I've just been beat up. That's how it goes.
So, you're still in your stress response. You're like everything's chilling out. That take a nap. You're like, I can't. You've ruined me.
Well, quiet means something bad is going on generally. Right. So it's disturbing.
Just flip this stress response. Is it quiet in here, honey? What the hell's going on? I'm not sleeping in all this quiet.
And then I lean over to Allison. I'm like, right. Kids are sleeping. She's like, go away.
Not tonight. I've got a tattoo, honey.
Yeah, but anyway, that scale of 10, really useful to keep the ball in their court, to allow them to self-assess, really useful to bring up a conversation with them. And anything to add to that?
There's a way to take that question just a little bit further that I really like is, let's say they chose 7 out of 10. Okay, why did you choose 7 and not 8? And then why did you choose 7 and not 6?
Yes.
And just helping them dig into their life a little bit, because we kind of come in with like these scripted responses, what we think we want the other person to hear. And so by adding that extra question, it just makes them actually think about it a little bit and think about, okay, well, next week I have this going on. If I didn't have that going on, I could be at an 8, or, I have an easier week next week. So that's why I'm at an 8. But normally, I would probably be at a 6, and so just the deeper question can be helpful.
That's so good. I love the inversion of the question so much. I'm on John's inversion train now, because why not a lower number? Man, that's such a great question.
Yeah.
Like when they
I wrote it all down. I muted myself because I was typing so fast as Amber was talking to write it down. This book is so basically year 2's book. I'm just going to put my name on it and not yours.
And I know Ren uses, so one of my favorite things about Ren, obviously, that we love Ren for, is how creative and funny he is. But whenever he gives the scale question, he always has this really like wonderful bookend for each side. So on a scale of 1 being whatever, and then like 10 being 2007 Britney Spears, where are you?
Yes,
right.
Yes.
And so like, I live for Ren's bookends for this question. It's just
the way I operate.
We need a bookend example.
Okay, on a scale of 1 to 10, how good do you feel about getting good sleep at night? 1 being a baby who's just thrown up all day and you're sleeping soundly, or 10. Oh, I'm sorry, 10 being baby who threw up all day, you're sleeping soundly. 1 being you just got off an acid trip and you think that your house is a shoebox. Go, right? And people just like, where do you come up with this shit? And I'm like, I'm always thinking. I love bookending the 1 to 10 question. It's like one of the only joys I have in life, other than this podcast, is bookending 1 to 10s. Everything else is abysmal.
But it's brilliant, right? It's not just for fun, right? But it helps people connect and be honest, right? Because like as soon as you give those kind of wacky examples, it takes down any kind of wall that they may have about answering it. Like, all right, okay, I can be honest with Ren.
And
He's
bonus tip, we discussed this several podcasts ago. Listening when you're enrolling, right? Listening to what people say. If they say they've got 2 dogs, and I say, "Oh, what kind of dog do you have?" "Oh, I got a Chihuahua and I've got a Newfoundland," right? And I'll say, "Okay, scale 1 to 10. 1 being cleaning up after your Chihuahua's hair, or 10, your Newfoundland sat in your car last night and your car seats are plush." Like they get it, because it's coming from what their experience is. You can make a lot of headway with people by just fucking listening to what they say sometimes, and not being so salesy. Thank you for that gateway, Amber. That was a great alley-oop.
Yeah, it's great. It's great when you can make a lot of headway with just the tip.
Make Ren choke.
Get some.
You're a contractor. There's no workman's comp, just for clarity.
I waited till you had half of the water in your mouth.
Then I got water on my arm, in my hand, and on my shirt. Oh my gosh.
That's what she said.
Whatever, Amber.
That's wonderful. Well, I got a lot more going there. And Amber, once again, if you could send me the recording of this episode,
right,
that would be fantastic. Thank you. You guys are awesome. Okay, second marshmallow concept.
Funny.
So we talked about the second marshmallow at the beginning of this. Gave marshmallow to a kid. Said, if you don't eat the marshmallow, we'll be back in 15 minutes. We'll give you a second marshmallow. If you eat the marshmallow, that's all you get. Cool. The predictive power of the study has been questioned, but the idea of doing the hard work today, day in and day out, for a perceived benefit in the future that you can't even really describe most of the time, which fancy kind of term for that is delaying gratification. The idea that results in more success in basically anything, it's kind of hard to argue. Like, whether this one study proves it or not is another conversation altogether. It's a 1972 study. Probably wasn't done that well. But and side note, if you want to see something really, really funny, they filmed all of it. And so look on YouTube, just like marshmallow study videos, and what it shows you, the video of the kids like trying not to eat the marshmallow. And marshmallows for kids are basically crack cocaine. And these kids are just like tweaking out, like trying to hide, like looking at the marshmallow with their eyes and like running away from it. And
it's the really most awesome thing ever. You realize what a marshmallow was to a kid in 1972? There were no Skittles in 1972.
You know what my parents did? I'm going to send you guys a photo of my parents. I obviously don't post it out of respect to them, but there's a photo of them that my brother took. He was visiting them in Arizona last week. And there's a photo of them sharing a milkshake. And they're like, my parents are like close to 80 years old. And it is the most adorable freaking thing you'll ever see. But when my parents were dating, once a month, they'd go out for milkshake and fries.
Right.
Think about that for a second. And think about what your dumbass does 5 times a week and doesn't even appreciate it when you go out to eat, right?
Right.
Okay. Sorry, dear listener. If you want to have what others don't, you got to be willing to do what others won't. It's that simple. Whether you want to grow a business, whether you want to tackle a hard project like write a book, whether you want to get in great shape, the process is kind of the same. You have to do stuff you won't want to do. When I wrote this, it was actually the morning after we had Chinese hot pot dinner at my mother-in-law's. We call her Paw Paw. And so, do you guys know what Chinese hot pot is?
I think it's talked about it once.
Did I talk about it? It's basically a big bowl of usually water, or sometimes you use like soup broth. and you put it on a big pot, and then there's a whole bunch of raw food, and it's a combination of veg and meat and stuff, and everybody cooks in the middle, and there's obviously like communal like cooking chopsticks, and then you take out the food and you make a sauce with like an egg and a whole bunch of sauces and stuff, and it's super delicious, and you cook at the table. Anyway, so there's a stove, and so as a treat for Calvin, Papa bought marshmallows to roast afterwards on the stove, because we had the stove, and the bag had both pink and white marshmallows. So side note, I don't know why they make pink marshmallows. They're weird. But white marshmallows, on the other hand, are a gift sent from the heavens. And so before dinner, Calvin and I had just one marshmallow, just one, after swimming, mostly because Allison wasn't around to say no. And so he did actually just have one. I ate all the white ones, all of them. The bag, Allison thought the bag only had pink marshmallows. It didn't. It was half and half.
Oh, half in your belly.
Going back to my problem with this 1972 study, I would have been that kid who ate the shit out of that marshmallow. I am hopelessly addicted to immediacy. I love the idea of delayed gratification. It sounds great. My lizard brain's way too unevolved for that. So what? Am I screwed? Like, what do I do? And I feel like most of your clients will be like me. Maybe you're not. I don't know. But most of your clients like me, we kind of need ongoing rewards and attaboys and thumbs up to keep going. Part of your job as a coach is to build that vision for the future, and then to set a goal, and then to break it down into the steps, the Tetris pieces, right? And help execute a plan going forward so that your client's confident in the direction that they're heading, but focused on the immediate task at hand. So your job is to keep the big picture in mind and continue reminding them of the big picture, but also to build a plan that includes small daily tasks. Their job is to execute on the daily task, which are things like writing 500 words, making 25 sales calls, buying a black coffee instead of a mocha crappa frappe latte, or just like showing up to the gym and doing something. And the smaller you can break up the tasks, generally, the better the chance that they'll do it. And then it comes down to designing a little reward that they look forward to getting once they've completed that task. You don't need to comment on every small action they take. You don't need to give feedback all the time. You probably need to give feedback a lot less than you might already be doing it. Mm-hmm. Oftentimes, just this tiny metaphorical real life high five does the trick. So I'll give you like a couple examples from other industries in addition to fitness, because I think other industries helps you understand something differently and more globally. So let's say you coach social media influencers. Have them text you when they post and just send them a thumbs up emoji. You're not analyzing, you're not commenting on the quality of their post on their image. You're just like, nice job, man. You did the work. You showed up today. Let's say you coach authors. Get them to break down their entire book into a series of cue cards, each of the notes with a section that's going to be 300 to 700 words long. You have your notes for that section on a cue card. You keep that stack of cue cards on the right side of your table. Every time you finish a section, you flip the cue card face down on the other side. Writing a book is an inherently difficult process because it just takes a long time. There's basically no rewards throughout it, and it's a solo endeavor almost all of the time. The act of placing the card down, face down on the other side, is super rewarding. Over time, it becomes sort of like an analog status bar as well. This is one of the reasons also why I like physical books over a Kindle, because if you think about what a physical book is, it's basically an analog status bar. Right? As it gets thicker on the left side, thinner on the right side, it's a status bar. You know how far you've gone. In a Kindle that's digital, not so much. In a Kindle, my only trick as I travel with one is I set it so it tells me how many minutes are left in the chapter and not the book. And that way there's little rewards. And I find it very difficult to read books on Kindle that have longer chapters. Whereas I don't have that issue with paperback books. And I think it's a lot for that reason. Do you coach sales? This is a trick that we teach in the Online Trainer Academy. If you coach sales, if you are doing sales, keep 25 to 50 paper clips on one side of your desk. And every time you make a call right? You're rewarding the process, you're rewarding the action, you're not rewarding the outcome, because the outcomes aren't always in your control, but the process is. So every time you make a call, you take a paper clip, you put it in a cup. Once your desk is clear, you're done for the day. Next day, you pour that cup of paper clips down in your desk and you do it again. If you coach fitness in person, give every client a certificate. The level 1 certificate has 5 spots for stickers. Level 2 is 10. Every level after that is 20. Every time a client has a session or shows up at the gym, you give them a sticker to put on their certificate. When they filled out their certificate, they bring it into you and they get the next color certificate, right? So you could have these color coded and they could be almost like the karate belt system. And you can have potentially rewards for completion of the certificates, or maybe not, because the certificate is often enough of a reward. What you can also do is you can use the certificates to, this is what I would do if I owned a gym. I would use the certificates to improve somebody's status in the gym.
Mm-hmm.
And what I would do is I would give people bracelets. So like those like Lance Armstrong bracelets or something, like the rubbery ones. And when somebody would bring a completed board to me, what I would do is I'd give them that color thing and they'd wear it in the gym. And that way new members would know who's been there for a long time, would know who to talk to. They would take on naturally like a coaching role because they'd be able to look down at their arm and they know, and they wouldn't want to go anywhere else because they already have the status in their gym. It would increase the stickiness. So there's a lot of other stuff that you can do with that as well. Anyway, no matter what you coach, the day-to-day process to achieve their goal, it's going to be hard for the client. Because for every 10 times, whenever we do anything hard, 7 of the times it's going to be okay. 2 of the times it's going to feel great. And 1 is going to feel absolutely horrible. Books, though, are not written in one great writing session. Businesses don't succeed because of one stellar phone call. People don't get ripped from one awesome workout. Good stuff happens because we keep showing up on the good days and the bad days and the oh so many not so good, not so bad days. That's kind of what it comes down to. I don't think that incentives need to be financial. I actually think in many cases when we're trying to improve action or adherence, I think financial incentives diminish because financial incentives are extrinsic. And as we've already been over in a previous episode, what was the episode? I think this was Never Lose a Client Again, that episode, where extrinsic factors attract clients are good for marketing. Intrinsic is what they stay. So you attract them with extrinsic motivators, right? So maybe it's like, hey, we're having a challenge with this financial reward for the winner of the challenge. Well, we all know that the minute you're in that challenge and you start making those changes and your life starts changing, you don't give a shit about the $500 reward for winning the challenge, because what you've gained internally, intrinsically, is so much more valuable. But you wouldn't have known that until you started. And so you have to attract people oftentimes with extrinsic, how you look, financial, whatever. And then you keep them by reinforcing intrinsic stuff. And so the best incentives are often very small, repeatable, specific to the process. And over time, the act of doing the work is going to become the reward in and of itself. Over time, your client will self-identify as the type of person who does the thing. And when this happens, there's no stopping them. It's a pretty wonderful thing to be a part of. You got any examples? I'd love to hear an example from either one of you of a client who, the moment that you realize or that they realized that they self-identified as a healthy, fit person.
Ooh, I'll go first. I'll let Amber think because it's not one particular client, but over the course of my career, I've had 7 different clients become coaches. They weren't on.
I want to know about one of them. Specifics.
We'll talk about Amy because she's still a client. Shit, her name is Amy. I forgot the fake name thing. But in any case, shout out to you, Amy.
Am I Amelin? We'll call her. It's Amy is short for Amelin, of course.
Yeah, Amityville. We'll say Amityville. She's no horror though. You see what I did there? But Amityville, mom of 2 kids, been with me at this point for probably 2.5 years. Just working through the thing. Like she treats the training like having a therapist. That's not what I do for her, obviously, but that's how she looks at physical training. It's just maintenance thing for me. And over the course of time, asking more questions, answering more questions in my group for clients only, and
Do
realizing
you remember what she said when she started? Do you remember
when she
why
first
she
started with
started?
me.
Yeah, when she first
Yeah,
started with you, what was her reason for starting?
absolutely. Yeah, I need to lose this weight around my midsection. It's fundamentally how every mom over 30 starts with me. Ren, I need to lose this weight around my midsection. Ren, I'm gaining weight in this area. I need to lose it. That's pretty much standard for the niche, with some exceptions. It's not a monolith, but generally speaking, the
Okay.
extrinsic motivator is that. And we worked through that. And she did that over the course of a year. She didn't do it in the first 3 months. She renewed. She did it eventually. Second year, things started to shift. And she started to see some weight accumulation, actually. So hormonal profile changed while we were working together. One of those life Tetris pieces, right? The blocks came down in a different shape, in a different direction. Thankfully, she was still with me because we were able to turn the blocks in, 180 one block, 360 another one, put it in an appropriate place. But through that experience, she said, had I not been getting coaching at the moment where my entire hormonal profile shifted, I would have been so lost. I don't know what the hell I would have done. I want to give that to other people. That was sort of the impetus for her to say, I want to learn about, I'm hearing all my friends around me say incorrect information who are in the same type of life, same time of life. And I find myself correcting them often because the things that they want to do are the things that you've told me don't really work at this hormonal profile. So I'm educating them. People need help out there, Ren. I can help them. And I was like,
So
hey.
as she got educated more, she started to be able to assess and analyze outside information better.
Yeah.
I like that. One of the things that I've always been really passionate about is teaching new clients workout jargon and gym etiquette very early on. And that's because it just makes your life easier, and the more people understand gym etiquette, the better our gyms are. But also it helps them feel like they know their way around and they're the expert in the space. And they can look at somebody else and like, they have bad etiquette. Or they can educate their friends using the jargon of the thing. And when we use the jargon of the thing, when we use the terminology of an industry, we feel we begin to self-identify as somebody who is like that. And once fitness and health becomes a part of somebody's identity, you won the game.
Yeah, 100%. That's exactly it. This is what I talk about all the time. And I want to pass it on to Amber because number one, I want to reference something. And number two, I know Amber knows it. One of the issues that I find with information is not that it's not informative. It's that in a quest to gather all of it, you end up sourcing multiple places for the information, some of which conflict. One of the best things that can happen to people is to find a single source of information that they can trust along a spectrum of time and take that information in solely, as long as it's reputable information. I think that's what's so great about the Online Trainer Academy, because if you're a coach and you're trying to find out how to coach online, you can look at 8 different places and get 12 different suggestions. But having one source repetitively over a course of time, I think that's where we really excel in the OTA. And that's what happened to this client. They got one source of information, me for all intents and purposes, and feeling knowledgeable on top of feeling informed, and categorizing the knowledge in one lane empowers the person. And I'll toss that one to Amber.
I'm not sure how to contribute here. Sorry.
That's what I'm just saying.
That was not a great setup. Sorry.
It's not a great setup. I'm just saying one of the things that we find when working with students in the OTA is they now have a single source of information that they can learn from over a period of time, where before they came to us, they were probably catching a sentence here, a thought process there, a methodology here. They're trying to mash things. It's Geronimo's clothing, but they're wearing the tiger shirt with the lion pants, right? If you got all lion stuff in your Geronimo's clothing, you know how to match. That's how I learned to match clothes in the 70s.
Yep.
But that's what I'm saying effectively. Do you find that that's one of the reasons why students can be successful in the Online Trainer Academy versus trying to piece it together from multiple sources? Because you get confused when you get information from all over the place.
And it doesn't necessarily mean that it's bad information
No, it's just
that you're getting from other places.
The problem is you don't know what you don't know. And
Right.
there's so much nuance. And so when you're trying to source
Right.
information from several different places, they're looking at it from a certain perspective. And then if you're sourcing information from a different place, they have a slightly different perspective. Not that they're wrong, it's just a different perspective. And so when you do stick with the same resource, they're generally looking through the same lens. So at least the information is more cohesive and more easily to be applied to whatever you're doing.
I got a message today from somebody who thanked me for a piece of content that I put out. I put out a post just talking about, it was a story that I told about why my content is so ugly and the trade-offs that I accept with that. And she said, thank you so much for this. I actually just had to fire a business coach that I worked with for 2 years because they kept pushing me to learn editing tricks for better music and TikTok reels and stuff. And it's just not me. And they just kept saying, oh, you're not successful because you're not doing this and you're not doing this. And what I said to her is like, A, that's cool. You learned that about yourself. But B, I think it's also important to realize that the advice that she was giving you is not necessarily bad advice. It's not the right advice for you because you're aware of how you want to do things. And the objective best way to do something to accomplish a goal isn't necessarily the way that you have to do a thing. Because even if there is a best way to, let's say in this example, get clients, that doesn't mean that there aren't a lot of very good ways and good enough ways as well that might feel more like you. And so if you're a coach and people are hiring you, it's important they follow this process. But if you're also looking to hire a coach, I think it's important to not to hire a coach who perhaps shows up how you might want to show up, or at least ask them about their process and why they do the process, and do some assessment yourself of whether that's what you might want to do. Like if you're attracted to somebody because they make really great videos, for example, like really short form videos that are really entertaining, and you have zero, you might enjoy watching it. You might find it to be entertaining or educational or useful. But if you have no desire to create that type of content, to do that type of thing all day, every day, well, you probably shouldn't hire that person. It doesn't mean you should never learn from that person. It doesn't mean that person doesn't have anything useful to say. But good advice for one person is not good advice for everybody. And I just think it's really important to understand that and respect the different ways of doing things. And there are people who might enjoy looking at my stuff, but they're like, well, I don't really want to write. I want to make videos. Great. I hope that you gain a lot from my things. I'm not the right person for you. I'm not going to tell you how to find training audio or jump and it can work. It can absolutely work. And so I think it's just very important to keep that in mind. Anything you guys want to add before I recommend another episode?
Yeah. So there's something really important that you said there that's really applicable to helping our clients as well, right? Like there's the quote unquote best way, right? But that doesn't mean that's the way that you have to do it. There's the good enough way. And so when we're working with clients, right, that you may have this, well, here's the right way to do it. This is the best way to get you the fastest results, blah, 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 blah. Doesn't mean that's the best way for them. And so that's where, motivational interviewing and digging in, helping them with the good enough way to do it is probably going to be the best solution long-term versus the quote unquote best way. So just to round that up a little bit.
I think about the number of particularly women that I trained with. I don't know why this wasn't an issue with men as much. It probably was. They just didn't admit it because men don't like to ask for directions. But it was an issue with women a lot where they really wanted to improve their diets and eliminate a whole bunch of foods, but they had young children, and the young children's food was often the foods that they wanted to eliminate from their diet. And so my advice, or what we do, is we don't keep junk foods and snack foods and stuff in the house. We just don't keep it in the house. Allison and I have no problem with us eating it or the other person eating it. But we want to make sure that it's something that we really want. And so every so often, one of us just like walks to the gas station in the corner and buys a chocolate bar. Like totally cool. The problem, of course, is that if it's in the house, you just grab it and you snack on it.
It's a wrap.
And so, and like, this is not a, oh, well, like, you just don't want it enough. You're just not disciplined enough. Ty Green, if anybody knows who he is one of the most well-known successful bodybuilders of all time. And he's also known as being like one of the most disciplined men. He's very philosophical. And he said, I watched one of his vlogs one day, like back in the day when I was in like John's, like, you know, hey, I want to put on muscle to get girls' face. I'm going to watch bodybuilders' vlogs. I don't know why. But one of the things that he was talking about was how he can't have bad things to eat in the house or else he would eat them.
Yeah.
One of the literal most disciplined men in the world when it comes to fitness cannot resist the temptation when he has food in the house. You don't stand a chance, Susan.
Right.
So whether the solution is to, I mean, if the optimal solution is just to not have it in the damn house, that's great, but that might not be a possibility.
Right.
If you have young kids who like animal crackers or whatever. And so then it's a matter of figuring out how to organize and prioritize those life Tetris blocks. Anyway, okay, I want to recommend another episode if you are looking for something else to listen to right now. Episode 21, which is called Selling Deep Health Coaching to Clients Who Don't Care Yet. I think this was probably the first very good episode we produced. I mean, I think some of the earlier episodes are for sure good, but I think this was the one where like, all right, guys, I think we got something here. You know, we're getting into our flow, and I'm really proud of it, particularly the last half of it. Really, really proud of. Selling deep health coaching to clients who don't care yet. If it feels like you're shouting into the ether, if it feels like you're shouting about the stuff that you feel like really matters in fitness, and you get frustrated because everybody else is like 6-pack shortcuts, and you're like, well, yeah, no, that's cool, but like a 6-pack, like you're just like, that person's skinny, that's why they have a 6-pack. Like it's not like, and at the end of the day, it's not actually that important. But you get frustrated because it doesn't seem like anybody's listening to the stuff that you feel like is really important about fitness, the deeper stuff, the long-term stuff. Fitness is a life thing. It's not a 30-day challenge. All of these things that we all know is true. I think you're really going to benefit from this episode, episode 21, Selling Deep Health Coaching to Clients Who Don't Care Yet. Thank you so much for listening, Amber. And yeah, as always, really appreciated both of your insights. You guys make me way better every day, and I appreciate y'all.
Tuck tucks.
MC Tuck Tucks.